Hi, I'm Andrew Lowe from IBM. I'm the lead architect for the IBM Public Cloud Observability suite of tools. That includes IBM Cloud Monitoring, which is built on top of Sysdig. I'm here with Aaron, who's from Sysdig, and Aaron, off to you.
Yeah, thanks. My name is Aaron Newcomb. I am the Director of Product Marketing for our Monitor product, and that's what we're going to be showing a demo of today. So let's take a look first at how you even get into Sysdig Monitor, aka IBM Cloud Monitor. This is something you can add on by installing an agent on your system. When you go into, like I've done, observability here, and you select monitoring, you'll see this pop up here, and you can see we've got, this is a graduated tier with Sysdig Secure and Monitor enabled. And I can open up this dashboard. You can also see that we're collecting platform metrics on this particular instance called Sysdig Demo, and we'll get into what that means in a second. But first, let's talk about what is IBM Cloud Monitor based on Sysdig. So we open up that dashboard. That's going to take us to this screen right here. So this is the product that we're going to be talking about today. And really, if you're used to taking a look at traditional dashboards in your environment, maybe from Grafana or someplace else, I think you're going to be really impressed with actually what you get here from the combination of IBM Cloud and this product from Sysdig, because it's going to give you tons and tons of information at your fingertips for you to actually act on right away. Every person I talk to that's used this product has found something immediately that they want to go follow up on. And so if you haven't used this before, I'm sure you're going to find something immediately to go act on in your environment. So IBM Cloud Monitor that we're in right now, you can actually, we have another product called Secure, and up here at the top, you can switch back and forth in between them. Today, we're going to be focusing on the Monitor product though. And right away in the Monitor product, we have a feature called Advisor. This is super exciting. It's actually relatively new, but it's a great way to see what's going on. Let's say you've got an alert, for example, that you want to follow up on. Maybe you've got a crash loop backoff going on, or you've got some sort of error with a particular pod or node or namespace, and you want to go in and see immediately what's going on. Traditionally, you'd have to dig into logs and pull up maybe some dashboards that may or may not be scoped down to what you're trying to find, and or maybe even do some research on the internet in terms of what potentially could be causing this particular problem, right? So but in Sysdig with Advisor, it's really easy just to actually drill down into the cluster, namespace, workload, or pod level of the particular resource that you want to get information on. So for example, if I want to click on this cluster here called Sysdig Demo, that's going to immediately bring up these metrics, and it kind of looks like a dashboard, but this is all relevant to this particular cluster. And so we can see an overview of the cluster performance, things like capacity, if there's any alerts triggering. Luckily, there's no alerts at the moment. So this is one of those rare instances where things are running really, really well. And you can see the capacity, you can see the node status for the nodes that are in this particular cluster. You can see specifically all the alerts, get an expanded view of alerts. Of course, there's no alerts at the moment. You can see resource usage, and this is all in scope of Kubernetes itself. So things like CPU capacity versus usage over time, memory usage, you can see the capacity of each individual pod. And of course, this is going to relate to the limits and the requests that are going on in your particular cluster, but it gives you a quick way just to see what's going on, what's good, what's bad, maybe what do I need to drill down into further. You can also see the various nodes that are within that particular cluster, and you can see any events that are going on in that particular cluster as well. Now, again, this is at the cluster level. What if I want to go a little bit deeper? Well, certainly you can do that. You can see here's all of the namespaces that we have configured for this particular cluster. We can see there's a sock shop here where we're selling some really cool IBM socks. They're on sale today. So maybe there's some increased traffic going on there, and we want to kind of drill down into that and see what's going on. And we can do that. We can either stop at the namespace level and look at the entire namespace. Well, there's not much going on here. Let's take a look at the overview. Or we can drill right down. Like I said, if you've got an alert and you know exactly where you might be having some problems, you could drop right down into the workload level or even the pod level. And you'll see that the information that we provide here kind of changes. It's in context. So for a particular pod, things like disk activity, network activity are more important perhaps at that level than they would be at the cluster level. And you can see this information is updating in real time, and it gives you a quick way to drill down in on a particular resource when you know where a problem might exist, or where you just want to take a look and get some general idea of how the performance and availability of that particular resource is doing. So super useful, quick way to get immediate information out of the information that we are collecting on your behalf and is going into this product, which is really, really cool.
Hey, Aaron.
Now, go for it.
Sorry, I'll interrupt you for a second there. One of the things you sort of quickly glossed over is that just install the agent. If you are poking around in the IBM Cloud and you're say an IKS cluster customer, you've got a bunch of containers provisioned on that landing page for your cluster. It's really easy, one button to click and say add my monitoring, right? Add the IBM Cloud Monitoring. The agent will be installed for you behind the scenes from the web UI. And one of the questions we get from people when they first see this is, well, what configuration do I need to do to the agent to make sure all those metrics are going to flow in? Like, how do I get that data, right?
Yep, exactly. And you have the, and even here, if in case you forget, right, it's here,
yeah.
That you can actually add sources, and the installation is super, super easy. Basically a one-click installation. And you start getting these metrics flowing in within just a few minutes. So super easy, tons of information, really, really helpful for diagnosing problems or just getting performance information.
Yeah, it's the thing I really like about the agent install is that there isn't really any configuration. Once you install it, all the magic happens really from the augmentation of the data coming from the agent by the Sysdig platform itself. So
yeah,
there's a lot of work happening behind the scenes. It's not just a key value metric store, but there's a lot of augmentation and correlation of the data coming in to give that rich view.
Yep, exactly. And to that point, we should talk about dashboards. So Advisor is great for when you're doing some troubleshooting or where you want to concentrate to get more visibility of a particular resource, particular cluster. But we also have a ton of out-of-the-box dashboards that you can use to get more information as well. So for example, if I had some particular pods, if I wanted to see how pods were going, or maybe I thought that there was a problem there, but I didn't know where to start, you might be able to start here in this out-of-the-box dashboard. It's called Pod Scheduling Troubleshooting. And here you can also scope down if you want to. We're in the Sysdig Demo cluster, but I could pick a particular node based on IP address in this circumstance, or I could take a look at, for example, that sock shop that we mentioned before if I wanted to, and we can scope down to just that particular environment. And this is helpful for comparing against multiple resources in your environment. So multiple pods, obviously, how are they running? Is there an outlier here? How are things going? And of course, you can create these yourself. If you have particular metrics or things that you want to keep track of, you can do that. But one of the great values here about these dashboards is that they are out of the box for the most part, unless you want to create a custom one. So if you want to see things like capacity planning, for example, you can get that out of the box. You don't have to set anything up. If you want to take a look at some of the applications that we've installed integrations for, like MySQL or Nginx, we have out-of-the-box dashboards that just show up automatically if we detect that you are monitoring those particular environments. So it makes it really easy. We even include some troubleshooting or things to think about in those dashboards, so that if you perhaps are new to these environments and you don't know what you should be looking for in a pod scheduling dashboard, you can take a look right over here and you can see the advice that we're giving you and maybe where to go for more information if you're not finding what you're looking for on this particular dashboard. So those are dashboards, but we have not only all of these dashboards out of the box, we have other out of the box dashboards that are specific to IBM in particular, because we've partnered with IBM to develop some dashboards that are going to be really, really useful as you're monitoring your environments and as you're looking for things like event streams to see how things are performing there. Andrew, you want to take a look at this? Let me clear the scope here.
Well, while Aaron's poking at that to get us the right view. So event streams is an IBM cloud service, and you as a customer of the cloud come, you say, hey, I want some event streams. This is effectively a managed Apache Kafka. right? Which is, I like to think of Kafka as sort of like the duct tape that holds the cloud together. It's really great to move bits around. So if you're paying IBM or any cloud provider to host that event streams for you, the Kafka, well, you can't just inject an agent usually, right? Because the cloud service is trying to make sure that the environment's secure. They don't want people putting other stuff in. But what we've done with Sysdig, the partnership between Sysdig and IBM, is we've built a pathway so that the IBM service team that's operating that Kafka can pick up some metrics that are interesting to the end customer and send them to Sysdig to be shared with you, the customer, right? So your cloud account, you go and you say, I'm going to get an event streams, or maybe there's a database you want to deploy as a service. You can get the metrics out of those IBM managed services back into your Sysdig and see that correlated right next to your application. So as your application's kicking along and it's using event streams as a message bus or something, or putting things in and out of a database, you can see the database traffic, you can see the event streams metrics coming out, and you can manage those resources as well. You don't have to fly blind. You don't have to trust that the cloud's going to scale it appropriately. In the same way that Sysdig helps you spot problems in your applications, Sysdig's been extended here so it can now spot problems with how you've orchestrated your cloud workload. So I get really excited about that because it's an area that's just a little bit unique where you could have Sysdig on its own. There's a lot of Sysdig customers that have come to IBM Cloud and said, we love Sysdig, we like what's going on here. But the fact that we've gone further and provided this integration between IBM services and the Sysdig is just sort of really cool. And as Aaron has pointed out, only the dashboards that apply to the services you're using are going to appear as a choice. So you're not overwhelmed with 100 dashboards from 100 IBM services. There's the 5 that matter to you because there's some data in your Sysdig instance indicates you're using those particular services.
So like here, for example, I think if we take a look at this one, this relates to your VPC, for example.
Exactly, yeah. So here we've got a VPC. Sysdig's detected that VPC is setting the metrics in, and you get some canned dashboards. So you sort of get, here's what, and in fact, this dashboard was developed by the VPC team, and Sysdig and IBM work to share that with a customer. So you're getting sort of what we believe is the right kind of first starting point view for here's what you probably care about if you're going to manage this compute resource.
Yep. And if you want to tailor things, you always can. There's a create custom dashboard button over here, so you can basically create a copy of any of these dashboards and share them with your team, or perhaps add in some different metrics you want to take a look at. One thing I did want to point out, which is really useful on these dashboards, is you can turn on these event overlays, and you see these little markers here at the top, all these different markers. It may not be pertinent for this particular dashboard, but let's say you're taking a look at a dashboard, you notice a big spike or a big drop off in performance. You can very quickly just click on one of these little tick marks above where you're seeing the problem, and you can go in and you can see what the events are that are happening. And here, these probably aren't related to this particular metric, as I said, but you can imagine if you're seeing, for example, network performance errors after you deployed something that was brand new to your environment, and you see those things happening at the same time, you'd probably want to go in and get more information about this particular problem that's going on so you can troubleshoot it, or you might even want to create an alert so that if it does happen again, you can be notified of that right away. So really easy to use and really valuable information here at your fingertips right from the dashboard page.
So not only has IBM partnered with Sysdig to provide the monitoring service that we have baked into the IBM Cloud, every cloud needs a monitoring story. IBM decided to partner with Sysdig because it's a great answer, especially the container-centric aspect of Sysdig really appeals to IBM where we're going. And on top of that, a lot of the IBM services are in turn implemented on top of the IBM Cloud. And we're also consumers of Sysdig ourselves. So, we have lots of operation teams that sit in front of dashboards that look a lot like this, or customized versions of it. And that's how IBM's operating the cloud. So, there's a really neat interaction happening here for sure. But, we only, we like the tool. We like the tool for our customers, but we like the tool for us too. It's a great tool.
Yeah, thanks for that plug. Well, we appreciate it. And it is a great partnership. There's no doubt about it. Speaking of being able to surface things like events, let's take a quick look at the events panel itself. This might be where you want to go to see all of your events or search for a particular event that's happening in your, I don't have any CPU events, things are running perfectly fine. But you could search for a particular event that was happening, and you can get the same sort of, you can view, you can look at a particular event and create an alert from it, and hopefully catch that in the future if it's something that's important to your particular environment. In terms of alerts themselves, if you were to create an alert, you can see there's lots of different out of the box alerts that you can set. So for example, downtime, that would be an important one. We can simply go into downtime and we can select where we want to see our downtime. We can select things like how we want to be notified, right? And we can also select, like, maybe you want to get an email, maybe you want to set up a Slack channel or have something pushed to a Slack channel, or you use some other pager software, notification software that you want to use. We have built-in integrations for those. And then you can select, the template to use for the email. So it's really, really highly configurable for your alerts, because we know that different people like to manage their alerts in different ways, depending on what works best for them and how they can resolve problems the quickest. And so we give a lot of configurability here for things like setting the scope, setting the trigger for when this thing goes off. And then you get a nice little preview of what it's going to look like if you were to scope or set your triggers, what it would actually look like for the alert itself, when it would actually go off. So very customizable alerts, and it'll pull you right back into the product and show you exactly what's going on if an alert does go off. One more area to take a quick look at is, what if I want to do some deep exploration into particular metrics? So we've talked about what I do if I get an alert, or I know what I'm looking for. Talked about what I do if I don't know what I'm looking for, or maybe just want to get an overview of a particular environment. This is the case where you maybe are an architect, or you think something's going wrong. You want to take a look at a specific metric that you know you're collecting, and you want to see what's going on in a particular environment, a particular cluster, a particular namespace, et cetera. So here we're looking at, for example, CPU use % across our entire infrastructure. And very quickly, this tool will pull up the exact metric here. You can see we're using, on average, a little less than 8%. It looks like 7.44%. That's across our entire infrastructure. But you can change this view simply by clicking on the various entities over here on the left. And these can be hosts, they can be workloads, they can be daemon sets. I mean, whatever you're running, particular jobs, for example, you can find that up here. And then you can scope down to that simply by clicking on that particular environment. And here you can see a particular, let's see if we can find a nice pod to look at here. We don't have one. So we're going to have to look at historical information as I'm just clicking randomly here. But you can see here on May 10th at 12 o'clock, our CPU utilization spiked up in this particular environment to 12.6%. So when you want to dig into metrics, and you can also see them side by side by clicking on additional metrics or additional ways to segment your data, you'll be able to do that in Explore. It's great for architects. It's great for people that really want to dig into individual metrics or multiple metrics and see them stacked side by side. But it is what it is. It's an exploration tool, not your regular dashboard that you would set up. If you did want to create a dashboard from this, you can easily you can say copy to dashboard once you find it what you're looking for, and you say, hey, I want to see this all the time. You can very easily either copy this view to a dashboard or create an alert from this view, because this can tell you, like, hey, when my CPU is over 10% for this particular environment, I want to get an alert. So you can easily create an alert from here. So very easy to use, very powerful tool. And it gives you incredible amounts of information about the metrics that you're able to collect from your environment. Okay, last but not least, I do want to talk about integrations, because I showed some of those specific out-of-the-box dashboards that you get when you're monitoring particular environments. So if we go down here to integrations and just click on monitoring integrations, you can see all the integrations that have been deployed, which ones have been configured already, and which ones maybe need some attention. Perhaps they need to be upgraded. This is all based on Prometheus exporters. And what we've done here is we've curated the best exporters to use. We've hardened those exporters by testing them again and again every time there's a new release. And then we've added them to the product. So instead of going out and finding these yourself and setting them up from scratch. We actually have them available directly in the product. All you have to do is find the one you're looking for and the environment you're looking for. This happens to be in Elasticsearch, and it tells you the name of the cluster this is in. And then I can say configure integration. And so we also walk you through exactly what you need to do to configure this particular integration, what metrics you're going to see when you configure this integration, and the out-of-the-box dashboards I mentioned. It gives you an example of what you're going to see in those dashboards after you configure this particular integration, and it starts collecting data, which happens almost instantaneously. And then at the end here, it shows you the versions that this particular integration supports so that you know it's going to work or not for your particular environment. So really easy to get started, especially if you've ever done any kind of configuration of exporters for Prometheus. You know, you have to keep them up to date. You have to search for them. It can be quite a challenge, quite a time sink. And we've tried to simplify that as much as possible. The other great thing about these is they are based on open source. So as the community makes exporters better and faster and have more of the metrics that you want to know, we'll be able to pick those up from the community and import them or make them available through Sysdig and IBM Cloud Monitor like we're doing here. So you never have to worry about, oh, is my exporter out of date, or do I need to do something different because my application has been upgraded? We'll keep track of that for you here, and we can show you where if these stop working because you're out of date, for example, on a particular version, you know, we'll show you that so you can take corrective action immediately if you need to.
Yeah, the alignment between, you know, Sysdig's platform and Prometheus is really nice, because a lot of development teams, they start with Prometheus because Prometheus is very easy to get set up in a Kubernetes environment and get going with, but it's a lot more difficult to coordinate your Prometheus across a lot of nodes, especially, you know, you get up into hundreds of machines and things start to get really gnarly managing that. Whereas, you know, Sysdig at 100 machines, it's in its stride where, you know, this is all working. So, you know, the Prometheus integration and the compatibility with some of the Prometheus APIs that Sysdig has is really nice, because it gives you a way to start small. You know, the developer's hacking something on their laptop. Here's my proof of concept. This is really great. But when you want to get to production, you don't want to run your own monitoring service. That's a hard job. Having been part of that for a couple of years now, I know how hard it is to run a monitoring service. You don't want to do that and do your job, which is running your application. Better to offload the monitoring to Sysdig, but the familiarity with Prometheus, being able to integrate with all those Prometheus exporters, it's a really great story to have a seamless transition from your small startup, you know, I'm just doing this thing, it's just sort of working, into the how do I bring it into Sysdig. So that portability is really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can use native PromQL. If you're familiar with PromQL, it's the query language of Prometheus. You can use that throughout the product anywhere you want, in the dashboards, in the alerts. You can use PromQL query. And if you're not familiar with PromQL and you want to learn more, we actually have a PromQL library that has PromQL 101 that tells you what all of these things are so that you can try them for yourself. So you can actually get in here and change the syntax if you want to, and then just hit try me, and it'll actually bring up the metrics that this particular query would produce if you were to do this yourself. So really, really helpful. But the other nice thing about it is you can query all these Prometheus metrics without knowing Prometheus too, because we also include the ability to create dashboard elements and alerts using our dropdown or searchable, we call it a form UI, a form-based UI. So I don't know any PromQL, no problem. I can go down here and pick a metric that I want to take a look at, and no data for this one, so that wasn't a good example. But if there was something in here that we wanted to take a look at, we could certainly do that, and just pick whatever. You can even search down here, right? So if I want to search for CPU, for example, it'll pull up all of the CPU metrics that we're collecting, and then you can very quickly build out a dashboard from that. So use PromQL if you know it. If you don't, no problem. We got you covered. Super easy and simple to create dashboards, alerts, and other things, other queries from Sysdig here in IBM Cloud Monitor.
Awesome stuff.
And that's it.
Yeah. So one area we didn't touch on is Sysdig has a Teams functionality where we can control who can see what. You can invite other people in. With IBM Cloud, we have an IAM system for managing access control. We won't get into that in this demo, but it's definitely possible to apply IAM controls in order to control the access to data inside a Sysdig. So that way, within your organization, your cloud account, you can have multiple users invited in. Some users would have a read-only viewer capability inside a Sysdig. Other ones would be administrators, be able to set up the dashboards, and give you that separation of concerns you need. We've done a lot of work with Sysdig to integrate them so they're working with the IBM IAM system and making that as seamless as we can while still leveraging the power of both the Sysdig platform as well as IBM Cloud's policies.
Yep. A great example of that would be a team that perhaps was maybe a development team or another team that was supporting a particular environment that was only really concerned with the particular namespace, right? So let's say I'm the team that's working on this sock shop and that's all I care about. We can actually, using Teams, we can actually scope that particular user down to just see information about the sock shop, which is also great for compliance reasons. If you need to provide functionality, but you need to limit it. The other nice thing is for Advisor, for example, with the troubleshooting capabilities, there's a lot of companies that don't want to give access to some command line tools to either developers or so forth. You can actually see a lot of the information that you would normally have to go to the command line to pull out of your platform. You can see that here in Advisor without needing to go down to the CLI level. So another really nice example of how you can scope things for your particular team.
Again, great demo. Appreciate the time you've taken to pull us through this. Maybe I'll wrap up saying we're doing a couple other sessions during this conference. There's a presentation I do with Eric from Sysdig, and we talk about both Sysdig Monitor and Sysdig Secure, a little more chart heavy, a little more, what we're going with the strategy and what's happening. There's also another demo for Sysdig Secure that is done by someone else from Sysdig. So I encourage you to check those out. Hopefully this has been useful. Aaron and I will be findable, I'm sure. So hunt us down, ask us questions. We're happy to help out.
Yep. Thanks for watching, guys.